We've got some breaking news to bring you on the hush money trial of former President Donald Trump. The defense has now rested its case. It comes after the prosecution cross-examined the defense's witness, Robert Costello, the lawyer who once gave legal advice to Mr. Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hillyard is outside the courtroom. Vaughn, walk us through the events of this morning. Did the defense rest its case more quickly than expected? And did we hear from Mr. Trump on his way out of court?
Right. The big question, Christine, was whether Donald Trump would ultimately take the stand in his own defense. Early on in this trial, he repeatedly said that he would do just that. But in the last several days, he began hedging a little bit more. And upon entering the courtroom this morning, he made it clear that the defense would rest its case sooner rather than later. And that's exactly what they did. After Robert Costello left the stand here this morning, Donald Trump and his team left after resting their case. They will return this afternoon, because this is where the charging conference begins, where they begin to determine, while working with the judge on the exact wording of what will be presented in jury instructions for the jurors to deliberate on whether Donald Trump is guilty or not. The jurors, meanwhile, have been told that they do not need to return back to this Lower Manhattan courthouse until this next Tuesday. That is when summations or the closing arguments will begin. And at that point, they'll be asked to go and begin the deliberation process to find whether Donald Trump was guilty of the 34 felony counts that he faces.
Hey, Vaughn, so tell us about the prosecution's cross-examination of Robert Costello and this witness in particular. What did we learn there about him, both when he testified yesterday and then again this morning?
Right. We have gone through now 4 weeks of witnesses, but what made Robert Costello so notable is because he was a marquee witness that was brought forward by the defense team. And Robert Costello is sort of this interesting character who came into the picture in April of 2018. That was the same time period when Michael Cohen's home and hotel room were a part of a raid by federal FBI agents, and then his phones were seized. And it was in those several-month period there, leading up to Michael Cohen ultimately flipping, you could say, on Donald Trump and cooperating with federal investigators and even then pleading to federal charges, that he was communicating with Robert Costello. And Costello had told this jury that Michael Cohen had repeatedly told him that he did the Stormy Daniels payment before the 2016 election all on his own and that Donald Trump had nothing to do with it. But on the other hand, Michael Cohen and the prosecution had contended that Robert Costello was trying to work as a back channel through Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump, and that emails that were presented as evidence in front of this jury showed that Robert Costello had suggested to Michael Cohen that he had friends in high places, referring to Donald Trump, and that he was frustrated by Michael Cohen seemingly beginning to work against Donald Trump's interests in having questions of whether he was, quote, playing them or not. And so there was a lot of back and forth over whether Robert Costello was simply working on behalf of Michael Cohen and was telling the truth about what Michael Cohen told him. But Michael Cohen had already said that he had lied at that period of time and that he was not being even forthright with Robert Costello, who he never signed a legal retainer agreement with, and that he should not be a trusted voice. And that is what the prosecution was arguing to this jury. So he was the final word here. As the defense rested its case. It's now going to be up to the closing arguments for both of these parties to make.
So, Vaughn, the defense only called 2 witnesses. What was the essence, then, of their defense to cast doubt on Michael Cohen?
Essentially, they made the case quite directly that without Michael Cohen, that they don't have a case. Now, the prosecution would argue otherwise, that they have documentary evidence and that the checks themselves, the reimbursement checks in 2017, are proof. That David Pecker's testimony, he was the publisher of the National Enquirer who testified to having multiple conversations with Donald Trump about this alleged catch-and-kill scheme. They believe that they have enough other evidence in documentation as well as through others' testimony that Michael Cohen was only the linchpin that brought it all together. But for the defense, they have made the case this entire time that Donald Trump never actually directed Stormy Daniels to be paid, that is just hearsay testimony of Michael Cohen, and that he, in fact, when he was reimbursing Michael Cohen with his legal expenses, that's exactly what he was doing. He was paying his lawyer for legal expenses, and at that point, it was hands clean about what Michael Cohen was actually doing with that money.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.